Every year in the United States, thousands of people head into the wilderness alone. They hike marked trails, they take photos, they expect to be home by nightfall. Most of them are. But every year, hundreds of solo hikers are reported missing, and a small number are never found. No goodbye, no explanation, no trace. This is one of those cases. The trail is quiet now. No voices, no footsteps, only the sound of wind moving through trees and the faint imprint of boot prints fading into the dirt. Nearby, a backpack lies abandoned, still zipped, still packed, waiting for someone who never came back. There were no screams reported, no emergency calls, just unanswered phone messages piling up as the hours passed. Family members assumed her phone battery had died. Friends assumed she'd stayed longer than planned. No one imagined this would be the last place she was ever seen. She was an experienced hiker, independent, prepared, cautious. This was not a dangerous expedition. It was a routine solo hike, the kind she had done many times before. And yet, somewhere along this well-traveled trail, she vanished. What makes this case different is not just that she disappeared, it's how completely she disappeared. No body has ever been found, no confirmed accident scene, no clear evidence of foul play. Search teams scoured the area. Dogs tracked her scent until it simply stopped. Helicopters flew overhead. Volunteers walked the trail inch by inch, and still, nothing. Most missing hiker cases follow a pattern. There's an injury, a fall, a wrong turn, something that explains what went wrong. But this case breaks every rule. It offers no obvious mistake, no confirmed danger, no moment where everything clearly fell apart. Just a woman who stepped onto a trail and never returned. Investigators would later say this case haunted them, not because of what they found, but because of what they didn't. No clues that stayed consistent, no theory that fully explained the evidence, no ending that brought closure. Tonight, we're going to walk through the entire story, from who she was before she disappeared to the final moments anyone saw her alive. We'll examine the timeline, the search efforts, the theories investigators debated, and the unsettling details that still don't make sense. And by the end, you'll understand why, years later, this case still keeps investigators awake at night. Because sometimes, the most frightening mysteries aren't the ones filled with violence, they're the ones filled with silence. So stay with us until the end, because this disappearance shouldn't have happened, and yet, it did. Who she was before she disappeared. Before she became a headline, before she became a photograph on a missing poster, before her name was spoken in press conferences and police briefings, she was simply a person living an ordinary life. A life defined not by chaos or secrecy, but by routine, responsibility, and quiet passion. Friends described her as independent but not distant, thoughtful but not withdrawn, someone who listened more than she spoke. She was grounded, practical, the kind of person who paid attention to small details, dates, plans, promises. There was nothing impulsive about her, and nothing reckless. She found peace outdoors, not thrill-seeking, not danger-chasing. She hiked for clarity, for silence, for space. When life felt overwhelming, she didn't look for distractions. She looked for stillness. And nature gave her that. The rhythm of walking, the sound of wind through trees, the simplicity of putting one foot in front of the other. That was her therapy. Her everyday life reflected stability. She worked steadily, showed up on time, handled responsibilities without complaint. She paid her bills, maintained relationships, checked in with family regularly. There were no financial crises, no legal trouble, no dramatic personal upheaval. Nothing about her life suggested she wanted to vanish. In fact, she was planning ahead, upcoming work projects, future trips she talked about with excitement, commitments she had no intention of breaking. Her calendar didn't look like someone preparing to disappear. It looked like someone preparing to continue living. Hiking was a part of her identity, but she approached it responsibly. She researched trails, checked weather conditions, packed the right gear. She wasn't careless. She knew her limits and respected them. When she hiked alone, it wasn't out of isolation, it was out of confidence. She trusted herself. Those closest to her would later say something chilling in hindsight. There were no warning signs, no strange messages, no emotional goodbyes, no sudden changes in behavior. The conversations she had before the hike were normal. Plans were made, jokes were shared, nothing felt final. And that's what makes this part of the story so haunting. Because when someone disappears, people often search backward for meaning. They look for clues, red flags, signs they missed. But here, there were none. Her life didn't point toward disappearance, it pointed forward. She didn't leave behind mystery in her relationships. She didn't leave behind unanswered conflicts. She didn't leave behind a reason. She simply went hiking, doing something she loved, something she'd done before, and stepped into a moment that would separate her life into two halves, before she vanished and everything that came after. Because this disappearance didn't begin with danger, it began with normalcy, and that's what makes it so disturbing. The hike that was supposed to be safe. The trail she chose that day was not extreme. It wasn't deep backcountry. It wasn't a technical climb. It wasn't a place known for danger. This was a trail people trusted. Families walked it with children. Locals recommended it to visitors. Park officials described it as low risk, well-marked, well-traveled, and regularly maintained. There were no warning signs posted at the trailhead, no alerts, no closures, no advisories, nothing that suggested this hike would end any differently than countless others before it. The weather that morning was cooperative, clear skies, comfortable temperatures, no storms rolling in, no sudden heat spikes, conditions that hikers dream of, conditions that give you confidence, the kind that make you believe you'll be back before sunset. She prepared the way she always did. Water, enough for the distance she planned. Food, light but sufficient. Proper footwear, broken in, reliable. Navigation tools, because even familiar trails deserve respect. She didn't overpack, she didn't underpack. Everything suggested routine. Her vehicle was parked neatly at the designated trailhead, not hidden, not abandoned in a rush, just sitting there, waiting for her return. It would remain there far longer than anyone expected. Investigators would later study that moment closely, the moment she stepped onto the path, because from that point forward, the timeline breaks. There is no dramatic incident, no reported struggle, no recorded emergency, just a woman beginning a hike on a trail that had no history of swallowing people whole. This is where many disappearances defy logic. Because when a trail is dangerous, explanations come easier. A fall, an injury, exposure. But here, the environment doesn't offer itself as an obvious culprit. And that's what makes this case so unsettling. Search teams would later walk this trail again and again. They would map it, measure it, study elevation changes and offshoot paths, and time after time they would come to the same conclusion. There was no clear point where everything should have gone wrong. No cliffs she could have easily fallen from, no river crossings that could explain a body being swept away, no obvious hazards capable of erasing someone completely. Yet somehow that's exactly what happened. She stepped onto the path, and somewhere along a trail designed for safety, she vanished. Because once she entered this trail, every minute that followed matters, and every minute remains unexplained. The day she vanished. Disappearances rarely announce themselves. They begin quietly, like any other ordinary day. And that's exactly how this one began. Arrival at the trailhead. On the morning she vanished, she arrived at the trailhead right on schedule. There was nothing rushed about her arrival. Surveillance cameras positioned near the parking area captured her vehicle pulling in calmly. She parked in a designated space, she gathered her backpack, she locked the car. No hesitation, no signs of distress, no indication that this hike would end any differently than the others before it. For investigators, this moment is critical because it confirms something simple and haunting. She intended to return. Stepping onto the trail. Shortly after her arrival, trail cameras further along the route picked up movement. A single hiker, walking alone. The figure matched her description. Her pace appeared steady, her posture relaxed. She was alive. She was alert. She was in control. This would be the last time she was captured on camera. Eyewitness accounts. As the investigation unfolded, hikers began coming forward. One recalled passing a woman matching her description earlier that morning. A nod, a brief smile, nothing unusual. Another witness remembered seeing a lone woman pause near a trail marker, adjusting her backpack, checking her surroundings. She didn't appear lost. She didn't appear injured. She didn't ask for help. That brief moment, ordinary and unremarkable, would become the last confirmed sighting. The digital trail. Her phone provided the next set of clues and frustrations. Early data confirmed her device was active on the trail. GPS signals aligned with her planned route. Everything looked normal. Then, abruptly, the data stopped. No outgoing calls, no emergency message, no final ping from an unusual location. The phone didn't show signs of frantic movement. It didn't register a sudden burst of activity. It simply went silent. Investigators couldn't determine whether the phone lost signal, lost power, or was intentionally turned off. Each possibility opened a different and equally troubling door. Her final messages that day. They were routine, casual, unremarkable, the kind of communication you expect to be home later. There was no distress in her words, no urgency, no farewell, nothing that hinted she knew something was wrong. The car that never moved. As the afternoon wore on, one detail became impossible to ignore. Her car was still at the trailhead, still parked, still untouched. As daylight faded, concern began to grow. Family members tried to reach her. Calls went unanswered, messages went unread. At first, explanations felt reasonable. Maybe she stayed longer. Maybe her phone battery died. Maybe she lost track of time. But as evening turned into night, those explanations stopped making sense. The first red flags. She was responsible. She checked in. She didn't disappear without notice. When she failed to return and failed to respond, alarm replaced patience. Park rangers were notified. Her description was shared. The trail was no longer just a hiking route. It was now a search area. Officially missing. When authorities officially classified her as missing, the tone changed completely. This was no longer a late hiker. This was a woman who had vanished somewhere along a trail that should not have swallowed her whole. Search and rescue teams were activated, dogs were prepared, helicopters were scheduled, and a place once associated with calm and recreation became something else entirely, a place of uncertainty. This was the moment the case crossed a line, the moment normal explanations collapsed, the moment a routine hike became an unsolved mystery. Because in disappearances like this, those first hours can define everything. And here, they raised more questions than answers. The first 72 hours, search and rescue. In every disappearance, the first hours are critical. It's the period when hope and urgency collide, the window in which someone might be found alive. For her, those first 72 hours would define everything. Rangers alerted. As soon as family realized she hadn't returned, park rangers were contacted. A missing person report was filed. Initial patrols scoured the trailhead and nearby paths. Questions were asked. Were there other hikers? Had anyone seen her? Did her phone show activity? Every detail mattered. Search teams mobilized. Within hours, search and rescue teams arrived. Helicopters hovered above the canopy. Canine units sniffed the ground and underbrush. Drones scanned difficult terrain from the sky. Volunteers joined the effort. Neighbors, fellow hikers, even strangers from nearby towns, all hoping to find her, or at least a clue. The search was vast, urgent, and meticulous. Terrain challenges and weather complications. But the wilderness does not make rescue easy. Thick foliage hid possible paths. Rocky outcrops interrupted line-of-sight searches. Trail intersections multiplied potential directions she could have gone. Even the mild weather that had made the hike appealing posed problems. Wind scattered scents. Sunlight shifted, changing visibility. Small streams became obstacles. Nature itself obscured the trail she had walked so confidently. Items found or not found. Rescuers discovered small fragments of her passage, a discarded glove, a water bottle left upright near a trail junction. Nothing that suggested a struggle, nothing that explained her sudden disappearance. Canine units picked up scent trails, but they were conflicting, leading in opposite directions. Every trail seemed promising until it ended abruptly. The emotional toll. For the rescuers, every hour weighed heavily. Search dogs fatigued. Helicopter pilots navigated tight forested areas. Volunteers pushed themselves physically and emotionally. Families in the control center watched the clock. Every passing minute increased anxiety. Every dead end brought frustration and despair. Why the first 72 hours were critical. In missing person cases, investigators often say the first 3 days are everything. A mistake in mapping the search area, a delayed response, or a misread trail can cost precious time. And in this case, subtle missteps, conflicting scent trails, overlooked side paths, unclear communication may have mattered. Hope and uncertainty. By the end of the first 3 days, no definitive trace had been found. Her location remained unknown. The trail was silent, the forest indifferent, and every unanswered question compounded the fear. The first 72 hours ended as they began, with tension and mystery. No clarity, no closure. Only the desperate hope that tomorrow would bring answers. Because when a disappearance captures the public imagination, pressure multiplies and scrutiny becomes relentless. The case goes public. By the 4th day, it was clear this was no ordinary missing hiker. The story left the trail and entered the public sphere. News coverage and missing posters. Local news stations picked up the story. Footage of the quiet trailhead, interviews with anxious family members, images of her smiling face now framed in hope and fear. Missing posters were distributed throughout nearby towns. Stores, gas stations, and trailheads displayed them prominently. Every passerby became a potential witness. Social media speculation. Online, the story exploded. Posts sharing her last known location, messages pleading for information. Theories, some plausible, others wild, began to circulate. Could she have fallen? Was someone following her? Did she vanish intentionally? The digital world became a secondary search party, one fueled by curiosity, concern, and rumor. Volunteer search efforts. Word spread quickly. Volunteers came from surrounding towns and even further afield. Hiking groups, outdoor enthusiasts, and local residents joined the effort. They combed trails, rivers, and woods, offering manpower the official teams could not match. Hope and determination infused every sweep. Tips flooding in. Authorities began receiving tips at a steady stream. Some were credible: trail sightings, possible GPS pings, someone claiming to hear a scream. Many were bizarre: claims of strangers in the woods, strange lights, or mysterious figures. Each tip had to be investigated, sorted, and either validated or dismissed. Online theories began to spread. As social media posts multiplied, theories grew more elaborate. Speculation became a wildfire. Was this a voluntary disappearance, an abduction, a wildlife incident, or something stranger, something darker? With every shared post and comment, the narrative evolved, sometimes helping investigators, sometimes muddying the facts. Law enforcement under pressure. Detectives found themselves in an unprecedented position. The family's anguish combined with public scrutiny created immense pressure. Questions from reporters, demanding timelines, daily updates expected. Every misstep was magnified. Every delay became a headline. The case becomes national news. Soon, coverage spread beyond the local area. Major news outlets picked up the story. Her face and story appeared on television, online, and in print. She was no longer just a missing hiker. She became a symbol of the unsolved, the vulnerable, and the mysterious. With the world watching, the search continued and expectations grew. Because once a case reaches this level of attention, every detail matters, and nothing can be ignored. Items found or not found. Rescuers discovered small fragments of her passage: a discarded glove, a water bottle left upright near a trail junction. Nothing that suggested a struggle, nothing that explained her sudden disappearance. Canine units picked up scent trails, but they were conflicting, leading in opposite directions. Every trail seemed promising until it ended abruptly. The emotional toll. For the rescuers, every hour weighed heavily. Search dogs fatigued. Helicopter pilots navigated tight forested areas. Volunteers pushed themselves physically and emotionally. Families in the control center watched the clock. Every passing minute increased anxiety. Every dead end brought frustration and despair. Why the first 72 hours were critical. In missing person cases, investigators often say the first 3 days are everything. A mistake in mapping the search area, a delayed response, or a misread trail can cost precious time. And in this case, subtle missteps, conflicting scent trails, overlooked side paths, unclear communication may have mattered. Hope and uncertainty. By the end of the first 3 days, no definitive trace had been found. Her location remained unknown. The trail was silent, the forest indifferent, and every unanswered question compounded the fear. The first 3 days ended as they began, with tension and mystery. No clarity, no closure, only the desperate hope that tomorrow would bring answers. Because when a case captures the public imagination, pressure multiplies and scrutiny becomes relentless. Investigation and early theories. Once the search shifted from immediate rescue to investigation, authorities faced a grim truth. No clear explanation fit the facts. The trail was empty, the forest was silent, and the woman was gone without a trace. Accidental fall or injury. One of the first theories was simple. She fell. Perhaps she slipped on loose rocks. Perhaps she twisted an ankle and could not call for help. Search teams examined cliffs, streams, and steep inclines along her route. But investigators found no evidence of a fall, no broken branches, no displaced rocks, no clothing or personal items left behind, nothing to suggest a struggle or accident. The terrain was challenging in parts, yes, but nothing that explained a total disappearance. Animal encounter theory. Could animals have been involved? Coyotes, bears, or other predators inhabit the area. Investigators looked for tracks, disturbed foliage, or animal scat that might indicate a confrontation. Again, nothing. While small animals could not be ruled out, no evidence suggested an attack severe enough to erase her presence entirely. The theory was plausible but insufficient. Disorientation and exposure. Getting lost is one of the most common dangers in the wilderness. Even experienced hikers can become disoriented. Could she have wandered off trail, fallen into a ravine, succumbed to hypothermia or heat exhaustion? Investigators meticulously mapped every possible route. Still, nothing aligned. No body, no signs of struggle, no remnants of a campsite or makeshift shelter. Voluntary disappearance. Some wondered, did she choose to vanish? Was this a deliberate act, leaving everything behind, cutting ties, disappearing intentionally? Family and friends dismissed this immediately. Her plans, routines, and messages pointed to a return. No farewell. No prior indications of wanting to leave her life behind. This theory clashed with everything known about her personality. Abduction or foul play. The most unsettling theory, someone else was involved. Did someone follow her? Did a crime occur on a seemingly safe trail? Law enforcement explored this possibility thoroughly. Background checks, interviews with trail users, pattern analysis. Yet without any witness accounts, signs of struggle, or forensic evidence, there was nothing to confirm foul play, only suspicion. Evidence supporting and contradicting each theory. Every theory had pieces that could fit, but none completed the puzzle. Accident, missing clues. Animals, no physical evidence. Disorientation, no signs of survival attempts. Voluntary disappearance, personality didn't match. Foul play, no witnesses, no traces. Why none fully explain the disappearance? Investigators were left with a haunting question. How does someone vanish completely from a trail that was traveled, mapped, and observed? How do hours of search, dogs, and drones fail to locate a single trace? Every potential answer led to more questions, and so the case grew more mysterious. Because in unsolved disappearances, the passage of time does not erase questions, it only deepens them. The years pass, a case goes cold. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, months turned into years, and still she was gone. Reduced search activity. After the initial flurry of activity, search efforts gradually slowed. Helicopters no longer patrolled daily. Canine teams were reassigned to other cases. Volunteers returned to their lives, leaving only occasional organized sweeps. The forest, once combed thoroughly, began to feel empty again. Investigators reassigned. Detectives who had followed every lead eventually moved on to other cases. Cold case units took over, but with fewer resources and less urgency. Files were stored, notes were archived, leads went dormant. Her disappearance became another unsolved case, one among thousands in the country. Evidence stored away. Items collected early in the search, clothing, backpacks, trail remnants, were cataloged and stored. No new information emerged from them. Every piece of evidence became a silent reminder of what was lost and what remained unknown. Anniversaries without answers. Years passed, marked by anniversaries that offered no comfort. Family members returned to the trail on the same day each year. They left flowers, notes, and candles. Each visit underscored the absence of resolution. The dates that should have been ordinary now carried weight and sorrow. Family vigils and public appeals. Public awareness campaigns continued sporadically. Community vigils were held. Social media posts resurfaced annually. News outlets occasionally revisited the case, hoping to spark new leads. Family members pleaded for information, any clue that might reopen the trail of discovery. Emotional toll on loved ones. Time did not heal. Instead, it brought a heavier burden: uncertainty, guilt, and fear. Was she alive somewhere? Was she injured, lost, or worse? Every unanswered question became a quiet ache, an invisible weight pressing on those left behind. How time becomes the enemy. As the years ticked by, the trail grew colder. Memories faded. Witness accounts became less reliable. Evidence, though preserved, lost context. The passage of time was relentless. The case became a haunting reminder that in disappearances, the longer someone is missing, the thinner the line between hope and despair becomes. Because even in cold cases, sometimes the forest hides more than just silence. Unsettling details and unanswered questions. Even after exhaustive searches and painstaking investigation, the case continued to defy logic. Every new detail seemed to raise more questions than it answered. Items found in impossible locations. Investigators discovered small items from her belongings, but their placement was baffling. A water bottle left upright on uneven ground. A scarf found tangled in a branch far off the main trail. No pattern, no explanation. It was as if the forest itself had scattered them, or worse, someone had. Each discovery suggested movement, but movement without a trail. Conflicting witness statements. Hikers and locals gave accounts that didn't align. One person recalled seeing her near a small creek, looking calm and collected. Another swore they saw her resting near a trail marker hours later. Yet cameras and GPS data didn't corroborate these sightings. Every witness seemed sincere, but their recollections pulled the timeline in conflicting directions, leaving investigators frustrated and uncertain. Digital silence after disappearance. Her phone had been active early in the hike, then silence. No emergency calls, no messages to family, no GPS pings outside the expected trail. For investigators, the lack of digital activity was unsettling. It suggested three possibilities: she had lost her device, someone else had taken it, or she deliberately went silent. Each possibility was disturbing in its own way. Terrain inconsistencies. The trail itself offered no clear answers. Footprints stopped abruptly. Dog-scent trails split and vanished. Small gullies, thick underbrush, and hidden side paths created blind spots. Even the most experienced searchers found areas impossible to fully cover. The wilderness that had seemed routine now appeared unpredictable, almost deceptive. Leads that went nowhere. Tips from the public flooded in. Some were credible, brief sightings or unusual activity on the trail. Some were bizarre, claims of strangers, strange lights, or unnatural sounds. Investigators followed each lead meticulously, but none yielded results. every lead that went cold added to the sense of frustration and fear. Clues that don't fit any theory. Each disappearance theory, accident, abduction, voluntary disappearance, or animal attack, was undermined by the evidence. Nothing fit neatly. Evidence contradicted itself. Clues were fragmentary. The puzzle became more perplexing with each hour of investigation. The one detail investigators still can't explain. Perhaps the most haunting element of all, a single trace, or lack thereof, that has remained inexplicable. No matter how carefully examined, it defies logic. It's the detail that keeps investigators awake at night, the detail that turns an already mysterious case into something far darker. As the investigation stalled, the forest seemed to hold its secrets close, because even in silence, some mysteries refuse to remain hidden forever. Expert analysis and modern re-examination. Years passed and the trail grew cold, but cold cases never truly vanish. They lie dormant, waiting for someone to look with fresh eyes. Cold case detectives revisit evidence. Detectives who once worked the initial investigation returned to the files. They pored over old notes, photographs, and search logs. Every overlooked detail, every misinterpreted clue was examined with meticulous care. Items previously dismissed as inconsequential were now given new scrutiny. Could a minor detail have been the key to understanding her disappearance all along? Advances in technology and forensic analysis. Technology has transformed investigations in the decades since she vanished. GPS tracking, digital mapping, and satellite imagery can recreate trails in ways unimaginable at the time. Drones provide aerial perspectives over dense forest that searchers could never cover on foot. Forensic analysis, DNA, trace evidence, even environmental sampling has reached unprecedented precision. Experts wondered, could these modern tools uncover something the original search missed? Behavioral profiling. Psychologists and criminal profilers were brought in to offer insight. They examined her personality, habits, and routines. Could her behavior have made her vulnerable to an opportunistic threat, or might her voluntary disappearance have aligned with her personality traits? Experts could speculate, but speculation alone could not solve the mystery. Could modern tools solve it today? In some ways, yes. Re-examining trail cameras, cell tower data, and environmental patterns could reveal previously unseen paths or patterns. New search algorithms might identify likely locations based on terrain and her last known movements. Yet even with advanced methods, the case remained enigmatic. What experts believe is most likely? While no conclusion is definitive, most agree on one unsettling truth. Her disappearance was not the result of a single predictable cause. Something extraordinary, some combination of missteps, circumstance, and perhaps human interference led to her vanishing. Experts lean toward a scenario that combines elements of disorientation, environmental exposure, and the unpredictable dangers of the wilderness. Why certainty remains impossible? Even with the latest technology, some mysteries resist closure. The absence of her body, the lack of definitive evidence, and the conflicting accounts leave investigators with questions that may never be answered. It is a case that continues to haunt professionals, family, and anyone who considers the fragility of life in the wild. Because some mysteries, no matter how advanced our tools, simply refuse to be solved. And while answers may never come, her story endures as a warning, as a memory, and as a plea for vigilance in the wild. Remember the missing. Stay aware. Hike prepared. Respect the wilderness. Share your thoughts and theories respectfully. Explore related cases. Keep the stories of those lost alive in memory and conversation. Because some disappearances are more than mysteries. They are reminders of how precious life, safety, and human connection truly are. Because some mysteries, no matter how advanced our tools, simply refuse to be solved. As we wrap up, I'd love to hear your theories. What do you think truly happened? Share your thoughts, ideas, and theories in the comments below. Your perspective might shed new light on this mystery. And if you're fascinated by cases like this, don't miss our next related video on bizarre missing person stories. It dives even deeper into unexplained disappearances, shocking returns, and the unanswered questions that still haunt investigators. Your curiosity keeps these stories alive, so don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe for more mysterious deep dives.